Hi there, I'm Tom Field. I'm Senior Vice President of Editorial with ISMG. Delighted to welcome you to our session today where the topic is Enterprise Leaders' New Mandate in the AI Era, Securing Innovation Before Risk Outpaces Control. I'm joined today by Tal Arad, CTO at Halfords, and Ophir Zilbiger, Head of BDO Cyber. Let me tell you just a little bit about our session today. A recent global AI survey found that 88% of respondents said their organizations regularly use AI in at least one business function. Yet, despite widespread adoption, only about one-third of organizations have begun scaling AI programs at the enterprise level. Today, we are going to have a practical executive discussion on how organizations can assess AI risk, build governance, and enable responsible AI adoption. First, a bit about my organization. ISMG is a global education and intelligence firm. We're headquartered in the U.S. in Princeton, New Jersey, and you may know us by any number of our 38 media properties: Bank Info Security, Data Breach Today, AI Today. In all, we serve an audience of over 2 million security and technology leaders globally, and we give them a daily diet of news, analysis, research, events, and educational programs exactly like this one. Just a few notes of housekeeping. If you have any questions for our two panelists, you can submit them anytime via the chat window on your screen. Even if we can't get to every question today, we'll get a response back to you via email. Should you encounter technical issues while viewing today's webinar, do take down the email address on your screen. If you're right to webinars at ismg.io, we've got support staff standing by to help. And a reminder, today's webinar is copyrighted material meant for today's session and individual study purposes only. If you would like to use any of the information presented today, please contact us. It is my pleasure to introduce our sponsor today, BDO. BDO is one of the world's leading accounting and advisory organizations. It's guided by the vision, global solutions driven to be the best. Operating across a worldwide network, BDO combines local expertise with global capabilities to deliver innovative, business-focused solutions. With a strong commitment to quality, integrity, and collaboration, BDO helps organizations address complex challenges while creating long-term value for clients and communities. And quickly, let's meet our speakers today. Tal Arad is a cybersecurity and technology leader. He's got 3 decades of experience across security, infrastructure, and enterprise technology, spanning global manufacturing, logistics, and consumer businesses. He is today CTO at Halfords. And Ophir Zilbiger is a cybersecurity leader, entrepreneur, trusted advisor with more than 30 years of experience helping organizations strengthen cyber resilience and manage risk. He's partner and head of BDO Cyber. Tal, Ophir, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Great to be here, Tom. Thank you.
Gentlemen, let's just dive right in here. What would you say is the biggest mistake that enterprises are currently making as they rush to scale AI?
I think, Tom, you basically said it in the question, or the answer is in the question. We are rushing, and we are really rushing with the AI implementation. I think it's an amazing technology. I can't imagine my life anymore not using it. It saves a lot of time, but we're running with something where we're not always clear about what the technology actually does or how it does it. And I think more importantly, in the case of enterprises, the ROI is not always clear. Many companies, or at least some companies I've seen, are running ahead with it for the sake of we have to do it because the other ones are doing it, our competitors or the big names out in the market. So we're running ahead. The impact is not yet clear, and the benefits are not yet clear.
So I'll tap into what Tal is saying, and I'll say that I think organizations today don't have enough governance and risk understanding to be able to adopt this groundbreaking technology. It's okay to experiment with it, but once we get to real-world questions such as, is it safe to use? I think that currently we are still ahead of, we still have a lot of effort to invest in organizations and enterprises to create an environment that can adopt this kind of shift in a safe, I'm not even saying secure, safe way.
Ophir, you mentioned governance. What happens when adoption outpaces governance as we're seeing happen broadly now? What breaks first?
I think the discipline of working based on organizational policy breaks first, and I think we're in the midst of a huge shadow AI wave where almost everyone is using the technology in different ways. Some of them are doing it in more responsible ways than others. But I think this is sort of like the visible, I would say, unspoken truth at the moment. Although there's even no attempt to hide it. It's in plain sight. The fact that we have so much shadow IT represents to me this gap of organizations not ready to adopt the technology properly.
Tal, you care to jump in on that?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a different take on this one, on why we shouldn't look at it as breaking. I think we maybe want to make the guardrails and the governance a bit more flexible, right? Because what Ophir mentioned about the fact that, the policies break first, absolutely, right? Everyone's breaking them, shadow AI is all over the place. But I think we need to recognize the fact that the way that policies are working at the moment is just not relevant for AI anymore, right? The move ahead is so fast that we need to be able to move the guardrails along with it. I think that's probably the big challenge we're going to see in the next few years. It's how do you move away from the annual update of the policies, is allow us to move the governance structure and the tools around AI safety and security in the same pace that AI is moving. So rather than what's breaking, let's think about how we make it a bit more elastic going forward.
That's a good image. Now, in this rush, which includes the entire enterprise, where do you find that CISOs fit in today's AI conversation, and where are they still being left out?
Tal, you represent the voice of the CISO. You go first.
Yes. Well, I think that there's two good angles for the CISO here. One is how do we? I mean, the basic question is how we secure AI, right? The more, the more, let's call it traditional risks that we're seeing, data leakage, AI being operated to create stuff we don't really know how safe they are, etc. I think the other angle of that one is that the CISO traditionally sees where things can really go wrong and how they can go wrong. So other than just being the voice of negativity, which I think CISOs are not that anymore, maybe we should treat CISOs as the voice of sanity a little bit. It's like, we like technology, and I'm as a CISO, and I think Ophir as well, we're both really very positive of adopting new stuff. And if you look at the technology the security industry has been using in the last decade, it's very advanced and it's moving very fast. So maybe you should see CISOs as the voice of sanity, is that we support this, but let us put a little bit of guardrails around it just so we don't lose control in the most critical moment. So call it the sanity advisors. Maybe that should be our title from now on, Chief Sanity Officer.
Not the Department of No, but the Department of Sanity. I like that.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to adopt that one.
Yes, absolutely. So I think the fact that we as cyber guys or cyber folks, we are used to thinking from the misuse point of view. I mean, in the development world, programmers are used to thinking about use cases. What is the use case for software? Hackers are thinking misuse case. What can we do that the software wasn't designed for? And I think us in security, we are used to thinking in that way, in the way of looking at misuse of technology. And I think that makes us probably the best candidates to consider for the job of controlling this new technology. It's not necessarily the same profession as it used to be. CISOs, I think, and I see CISOs struggle with asking themselves the questions of what is my role with this change. But I think that CISOs are probably the best candidates to be considered for this kind of critical thinking that we need in this fast-moving paced change.
Well, given the speed, and we've already talked about the risks and the benefits still being tough to nail down, what would a responsible AI risk assessment actually look like in practice today?
I think if I'll generalize and I'll start with the basic risk management elements. What is our business? What's the impact to the business potentially? And this question already, I think, is a question that's hard to answer for top management. Usually they are the ones that are asked about the impact of a certain risk to business. AI risk is something that people have a hard time to imagine. Some of the issues that AI have are already common knowledge, like, for instance, hallucinations. But other than that, there are many angles for many risk-related angles that need to be considered that executives don't necessarily understand today. I think there's a gap that we will need to go through some learning phase, organizational learning phase, in order to get some maturity around this. And up until then, we will need to use the fundamentals. So, what is the business impact? What can go wrong? Ask the experts. So ask the CISO or ask the AI guy, can this information be leaked? What is a misuse of what we're trying to do, and try to judge based on what we have available today, and tap onto the accumulated experience and learning over the months. Because of the pace, I think we will get to see many different mistakes done by others that we can learn from.
I think just to add on what Ophir said, other than the traditional risks that we look at, the technology going wrong, data leaks, etc., there's one angle here which is unique with AI. I'm going a bit science fiction here, but this is the first time there's a technology that can have an opinion as to a degree, right, with what's actually telling you, or the fact it can give you false information either deliberately or intentionally, and you tend to trust that technology, right? I mean, we all are quite trusting of what the AI tells us. But if someone actually injected information in it, which is purposely wrong, that can end up very badly for us. And the same thing of having an opinion, right? If you ask an AI on, let's say, for example, what do you think is the right control for this risk? Or how do you think is the best way to use this technology? It might give you a real wrong answer, and you won't be able to actually determine that without doing a much more detailed analysis on the answer and the factors that led to that answer. So it's a completely different level of risk that you're dealing with, in my view.
Gentlemen, coming back to governance, how do you build governance around AI behavior you can't always see or certainly predict?
I think first is, you actually touched that, Tom, is the visibility. I think the first and foremost is to actually understand what it is, or understand to a degree what it is you're actually running in your organization. And again, this is where the technology is running ahead very quickly without us yet catching up. There are tools out there, but we're much quicker with implementing let's say the Claudes and the OpenAIs of the world on enterprise level without actually putting much visibility on it. You might have already thousands of agents running in your company, and you have no idea that they are what they're doing. So for me, the first and probably the most important step at this point is create visibility. Then you can start thinking of what governance looks like.
I think the fact that we are all human makes all the difference. For decades and more, we've been used to running organizations that are operated by people. And people have certain qualities that are general, like, for instance, people learn, and people get context in the corridor when they move around the organization. And after 2 weeks, people know what they're supposed to do, And we're talking about technology that doesn't have the context and doesn't have the skill of humans. And we're not used to running or to managing these kinds of resources. And I think in order to get governance right, we need to educate top management about these different qualities, make them understand what's changing, what are the new capabilities and opportunities, but also what are our methods to control and to create this virtual, simulated, synthetic education to those pieces of software so that they know what they're supposed to do over time. The fact is that whenever you turn to an AI, it's the first time that they see you, that the technology sees you. And the only thing that makes a difference is what do you add as context every time you ask it a question or turn to it. That's a huge difference, and that's the starting point of governance to me.
Well said. Let's come back to the topic of shadow AI. It's something every organization wrestles with to one degree or another. How serious would you say the exposure is, and where do most organizations get this wrong?
I think, sorry, Ophir, I keep jumping in front of you.
Please.
I think there's two things here. First is the classic data leak, right? Where people just use today AI for everything and mostly consumer-based services without actually having any idea of what they're dropping into that one or what happens to the data afterwards, right? You drop customer data, you drop passwords, you drop a lot of stuff in there, and you don't actually know where it's going from that one. I think that's one point, and the other one is the whole running an agent is the same as talking with a ChatGPT, right? Which is a misunderstanding. And I think the two spectrums of dealing with those risks are both of them are wrong. One is completely blocking it, because that you can't do that, right? I mean, if you block it, then someone will go around it, or you are stopping the company from actually achieving its business goal. So you can't just block the whole thing. And the other side of it is just allow everything. So we still haven't found a middle ground where, like, going back with what I said about having visibility and let's say the elastic kind of guardrails, we're not there yet. We're either completely blocking or we are completely allowing without finding middle ground with the progression of AI.
I think we have a very interesting situation in our hands where the technology is moving so fast. It's like I checked the adoption rate. It's twice as fast as the adoption rate of internet or personal computers in the past, and it feels much faster actually to me when you look at the reality around us. It feels like dog years, sevenfold, and the pace is so quick, and the changes of the technology itself is so fast, and the way that we need to educate ourselves, even the experts. And I'm not calling myself an expert. Whenever I start an AI conversation, I say I'm a student and I'll be happy to learn from you. And I think everyone who is interested in that is on the same sort of journey. And there are many people with different concepts, different ideas, different experiences, and it will take time to catch up because of the pace of the change. And I think at the end of the day, we will need to initially address the more strategic questions about, what are we doing with it and how do we control it? And then over time, we will get to places where our small experiments, like building an agent or running some application that was vibe coded or whatever, they will fall into place. I think it's going to be an agile process, and we are probably facing a few surprises on the way that we can't even foresee now.
Ophir, I want to follow up on that point about speed. We've made it clear AI is moving faster than the rules that are being developed. Where is the biggest danger in that gap?
I think we're seeing two different kinds of organizations today. And of course, between people, it's a different thing. But when we're talking about organization and governance and adoption, there are organizations who are more open to risk and are sort of also connected. I see it a lot in high-tech companies, for instance, where they are open to technology risk more and to try new things, as opposed to more traditional industries like financial industries, where they will be very, very strict about using new technology and making sure that regulation is met. I think the risk currently is in the fast-moving organizations where they are open for these changes, and many times they would introduce these changes into the business without the full understanding of what is the exposure. On the other hand, I think that there are organizations who feel like they are missing out. It's like fear of AI, fear of missing out. I think there's a new term like that somewhere.
FOMO.
Yes, and I think that these organizations are. My view is that there is no need to be too fast and too quick in the adoption pace. I think some of the risks that you may face adopting quickly and moving fast, you will save organizations that don't move as fast will save some hardship, let's say, over the next 12 months if they don't necessarily move as fast as others. Was that too argumentative, Tom? I mean,
I don't think so at all. I welcome Tal's response.
I think I will add to what Ophir said is on the what I started earlier with the lack of understanding and trusting too much the AI, right? I can definitely see a situation where Someone somewhere just hands over the production keys to an AI and telling it, just promote to production on a Friday afternoon, and then the whole company goes down. I think we already seen some similarities in some of the AI-related incidents. It's going to become much worse. So I think this is where we are right now, where the risk is more trusting the technology too much without understanding what it's doing.
And this is
go ahead, Ophir, please.
Yes, and this is pre-mythos. I mean, we're just talking about
Exactly
quick
right.
adoption of AI for the use of business or executives without even looking at the change that AI will introduce to the security industry itself and the hacking industry itself.
You make a very good point. Okay, so given where we are today, what would a useful AI governance framework look like? And at this point, in a post-mythos era, what makes many of them fall short?
Tal, I welcome you to take this on if you would like.
Yeah, just because you need more time to think about this one.
Caught red.
I I don't have a good answer here. I think the problem I have with answering this one is that because of the pace, the movement, especially with the post mythos area, I think everything we know about security is about to change quite dramatically. I've been in a roundtable with a company that specializes in incident response recently, and they said that they believe that until the end of the year, the time from finding a vulnerability until there's an exploit available, it's 60 minutes, where at the moment where days earlier this year we were in weeks. So I think having a framework for something moving that fast, it's difficult to design. But I can tell you one thing, it has to be done by an AI, right? That sounds a bit bizarre, but we as humans with our pace of thinking cannot compete with the security risks that are being introduced by a technology that moves much faster than us and thinks much faster than us. So however we're going to do that, we have to develop a model that supports, it's called the defenders, right? In this case, the blue team, rather than just think that we can continue in the same way of writing policies, doing vulnerability scans, trying to block stuff. It needs to be something new completely.
So what you're saying, Tal, is as opposed to what I said earlier about the fast adoption of AI technology representing a risk to business, in the security space, you might argue that we need to move fast because of AI risk. We need to move fast with AI adoption into the security space, faster than the organization.
Yeah. But this is not a new trend. I mean, if you look at the security industry's pace of movement, it is faster and it has been faster in the last few years than the general IT industry, right? If you look at the amount of startups in the cybersecurity space, it's much higher than in other areas. So I think we need to move even faster. And you're right in the sense we are going to introduce new risks, but I think we have to do that. We can't sit down and just wait for things to kind of solve themselves. And we also have to basically live with the fact that we won't be able to solve, I don't know what percentage, but we're going to run with an increased level of risk going forwards. But at least let's look at the more scary stuff. How do you stop an exploit from happening 60 minutes from the moment the vulnerability is found? How do you stop a rogue agent from bringing down the entire company? So let's start at least with the kind of holy grail of security, and then see how we expand from there.
I think this is an interesting conclusion or mid conclusion, let's say, in this conversation, sort of, because I mean, from one end, we are in a situation where it's really hard for me as a security professional to see organizations move too fast in the adoption of AI, and I continuously preach governance and risk, and let's have patience and measure ourselves and make sure that we have a secure environment to get that going. That would be my wish as a security person, at least. And on the other side, when we're looking at the threats, and Tal, you were talking about the window of discovery to breach, or the window of attempt to actually getting in. And that window, when we started our careers, back in the day, it was, I don't know, weeks or even months.
Or longer. Yeah.
Or even longer. And over time, this window was shrinked. Over time, it shrank into I think in the last 5 years, it gotten to a place where it's really days or even hours recently. And now we are in sort of like an asymptotic point in time where from months to weeks, it took decades to move from months to weeks to days. And now it's taking a few months to move from hours to minutes to even seconds. And that is a change that we will not be able to meet without AI technology enabled security systems, as Tal is saying, and I absolutely agree. And that makes a very interesting conclusion that security doesn't have the luxury of waiting for AI adoption of security tools. I mean, AI-based security tools, we will have to get there because of the mythos angle that we didn't really expand yet or provided any context, but the danger is greater for sure, and the pace is greater, and that's a very interesting conclusion, I think.
Well, you make a good point. We've never seen technology change at this pace. But given that reality, how do enterprises now think about building a roadmap at this pace?
From what I've seen, the roadmap is looking like the way we've always done roadmap, right? I think we haven't shifted gears yet. I think that the whole look for a tool, budget it, get the approval, do a POC, implement, that's how we're doing right now. And that's going back to what I said, is that the way we're doing it has to change. And I don't have any good solutions right now, because on the one hand, I'm saying we need to move faster. On the other hand, I can't just go back to my company and says, give me an open check for 5, 6, 10, $20 million and let me play with some tools. I need to have some solid thinking behind it, right? So this is where I feel that we haven't yet found a good way to do that. And adding on top of that is the amount of noise in the cybersecurity industry right now is just deafening, right? We always joke that if you go to RSA, you always know what's going to be the hype word for the next 12 months if you go to the RSA conference. And I think for the last, I know, Ophir, you helped me here 2-3 years, the only thing everything is talking about is AI. That's the only hype. The amount of startups that have been talking to me about AI security is just enormous. I just stopped differentiating between them anymore because they all pitch the same thing. So again, there's another change. Unlike the more traditional security areas where you have, the few big players per segment, here is just so much in it that you just can't tell anymore who's doing what. So going back to your original question, Tom, how do we change the roadmap? I don't know. It's again, we need to break the normal ways we're doing that and start moving at pace. But I don't know yet how to do that. I think we need a bit more time to think about it. Maybe use Mythos.
Yes, let's find a breakthrough through Mythos. I think I think security people are finding it very interesting these days. Tom, I think the fact that security people like ourselves, we see AI from all different angles. We see AI as an organizational challenge that needs to be met, and people are looking at us for solution. We see AI as something that will be used by our adversaries, by hackers, and we need to see how we manage that. We see AI as something that augments our capabilities as security people, and we need to see how we harness that. And we see AI also as a personal or executive level tool that can help us as it helps everyone. And these 4 different perspectives are very confusing. And also tools and technologies such as the ones that Tal is mentioning are also of these different kinds. There are AI tools that help us do security. There are security tools that are supposed to protect against AI threats. So every angle has its own sort of perspective, and I think we are in a very interesting point. Security people will look around and everything is AI, literally. I think the fact that this is true helps me at least. One of my roles is a business executive selling security or helping our clients with cybersecurity business. This is our business. So aside of the fact that we're helping companies secure the adoption of AI, I'm also wondering about the business change within our practice. What is needed? How do we do things differently? And just like any other business manager, I think the challenge is in the business layer. I think the change, and that's back to your question, Tom. I think the change in the roadmap needs to come from the top executives. Once they understand what AI is, that's back to the education point that we talked about before. The change can't come from the IT. I mean, IT can enable technology. IT can provide different infrastructure. CISOs can provide secure infrastructure. The business change and the way that the business will behave differently is something that the business leadership needs to dictate, and then the technology people can respond by making sure that it's secure, efficient, et cetera, et cetera.
Excellent points. Tal, a question for you. Oh, please,
sorry,
go ahead.
Tom, I just want to add one more point on what Ophir says, that while not disagreeing with you on the last point where IT is not leading transformation, agree. But I do want to add that I think the company's executives need to listen more to their IT people, because there's always, when you have a big wave of hype coming in, there's a tendency to bring an external consultant who knows everything about everything, and they will tell you where, how to get yourself to the next generation. And in many cases, you already have that knowledge within your tech organization, but you're not listening to it because you think that the externals know better. So I would say, again, agree. Tech should not be leading transformation, but it should definitely have a voice at the executive table.
Yes, and maybe to that, I'll just add, sorry, Tom, just to add a quick one. The fact that we are noting the absence of CISOs around the management table when it comes to AI discussions. And this is a very interesting phenomenon. Some of the CISOs, I think, are concerned about their ability to really be able to mitigate or to respond or to have a meaningful conversation with management. And they may be threatened, or some of them may think that they're overloaded with reality as it is, and let's say someone else solve this problem. And I'm concerned about this because it leads to a situation where some of the risk is uncontrolled. And I think that CISOs from time to time miss out on an opportunity to really be meaningful in this space.
Now, I've got a question for you. If a CISO could take one concrete step toward responsible AI scaling, what would that be?
Towards responsible AI, what was the last
Scaling.
It's probably the first, it's the understanding that you can't stop it. I think that's the first step, right? Because once you realize that you have to support the move rather than slow it down, then you'll be in a much better place, right? We just to use a small analogy here. If you recall the whole bring your own device revolution back in the, I don't know, it was 2008, 2010, where Apple introduced the first iPhone, and then all of a sudden you have people wanting to connect their personal phones into the company network. We never had that need before. And then CISOs tried to stop that for years and failed completely because, people didn't care anymore, and we didn't have the technology to support that. So I think if people that will try to do the same thing here already failed, once you understand that it's a wave you cannot stop and you have to run with it or run a little bit ahead of it, that's your first step in actually doing to develop the responsible AI or the safe AI approach. Then there's quite a lot of work afterwards, of course.
Ophir, do you care to weigh in on that as well?
I think that, Tom, it's interesting. The fact that we are very excited about AI, Tal, myself, yourself, we're having a conversation about things that people are probably interested about and concerned about. I think there's a very big difference between in the level of knowledge between different people in the marketplace right now. And I find myself many times have a conversation that I think, I include the fundamentals of what AI security, for instance, needs to look like. And I find that organizations are still struggling with more basic challenges, like, for instance, who's responsible for how does the CTO office works with the CISO to enable, I don't know, Bedrock on AWS. It seems like organizations have a tendency to take it a little bit too tactical. And once again, this struggle between CISOs not necessarily finding themselves at the right seat on the management table creates various different situations. Just in the last week, I had meetings with, I think, 4 organizations. Each one had a different solution to what AI needs to look like from an organizational initiative perspective even. So I think we are in a very interesting point. Once again, the speed is hitting us hard. I think people should probably look at the top 10 lists of sorts, like for instance, OWASP top 10 for adoption of AI in a secure manner, or the basics of AI governance, just to understand where are the challenges that need to be met in the next few months. This is like the tactical challenge at hand, and it needs to be met quite quickly.
Well said. Ophir, before we wrap up here, a couple of questions for you specifically. One, talk about BDO. How are you helping your clients get their arms around the AI challenges we've discussed here today?
Well, honestly, the first thing that we did was to experiment and experience ourselves. I clearly remember that the first time I was asked about security and AI, that was about 4 years ago, maybe a bit more, in the Gen AI era. And I found myself struggling with what's unique about that. That was a long time ago, and ever since, of course, we've learned a lot and we've seen a lot of things happen. I think the focus here needs to one of the analogies that helped me is this comparison between real people and agentic workloads that are not real people. What's the difference between a person that I manage and software that performs stuff for me? It's not the software that I use. It's software that performs stuff for me, and it's not deterministic. I mean, there are different kinds of software that do things in an organization, like ERP. They are supposed to be deterministic, and if the result is not deterministic, then there's a bug or a ticket is open and someone needs to fix it. In the AI world, it's not necessarily like that, because there's some opinion of sorts or some mechanism that makes decisions based on non-decisive or not necessarily the right, the clear path forward. And this distinction is something that we need to struggle with. We need to learn how to deal with. I think that's the starting point.
Let me just ask you this. If there's one message you want to leave with the audience, say about BDO and how it's helping customers to embrace AI, what do you want to share?
I would recommend strongly to look at things from a governance and risk perspective, to judge whether you have the right level of knowledge in the organization, both technically and from a process point of view, to make some basic decisions and look for the basics. The struggle is just starting, and I think many organizations are missing out at the beginning. Make sure that you have the right people around the table and just start the journey in a way that is controlled. That's my best recommendation.
Ophir, where can our attendees go to learn even more about what you're doing to help clients?
Well, first of all, I think our website is always a good source of information. We try to publish our content and our opinions, LinkedIn channels. This is where you can find us. And of course, happy to meet new challenges every day. That's what we do for a living. And I think we're living through an exciting time. So I'm happy to meet and to discuss these topics and any other topic every day.
Indeed. Tal, Ophir, been a terrific conversation. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciated.
I'm very grateful for the insight. And I want to thank our attendees. We know you took time out of your day to be here today. We're grateful for that. And I trust you're walking away with some excellent new ideas you can put to work in your efforts to scale up and govern AI. As always, I look forward to seeing you at one of our upcoming sessions. And until then, for ISMG, I'm Tom Field. Thank you for giving us your time and your attention today.